And by doing the podcasting and by doing the videos, I became more confident and able to actually string sentences together on the fly, as opposed to needing to like read off of something or whatever. And so my evaluations got smoother. My ability to relate to patients got better because I could communicate better. I can speak in front of my team now because, you know, we have 7 employees now.
Wow, good for you. Holy shit.
All within the last year,
man.
actually. So that's a whole story in itself, but all within the last year, 7 new employees. But now I'm leading these meetings and annual planning meetings and like weekly meetings and all of these things, and I feel comfortable with it. And I really do relate it all back to when I did my podcast and the videos and the live Facebook streams.
All right, today we're diving into the world of physical therapy with a twist. Today you're going to meet a PT and business owner who's shaking things up in the PT landscape a little bit with his gym-based practice. I got a chance to work as a student physical therapist in one of these, and I'll be honest, I liked it a lot. It was a little bit different than other things I was exposed to, and I liked that difference. It's called Back on Track Therapy and Wellness in Ohio, with a knack of blending personal well-being and groundbreaking business strategies. Our guest today is going to help you learn some stuff. Meet Cameron Dennis. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Cameron, first question we usually ask is, what are you drinking? You're at work, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to act as your personal HR department and tell you don't drink at work, which you weren't going to do anyway. That's okay. But if you weren't at work, what would you be drinking? What's your drink of choice? What do you like?
You know, I knew you were going to ask this, so I was thinking about that. So I really like Guinness.
Okay.
And then Guinness, I learned a party trick in college where so sometimes I'll actually do this at home. Now I like take that college trick and do it at home, but you basically take a Guinness, you take a Blue Moon, you pour it halfway into the cup, right? So half the bottle into the cup. You then flip a spoon over, and then you pour the Guinness over top of that, and it separates the two.
Okay.
Right, and so it's called Dark Side of the Moon, and so it's like chocolate covered orange.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So that's my favorite one.
Fine, I'm going to try that next. See, here's the thing. I was in radio. And my on-air name was McKay. It was just my last name, right? That was like the way I could sound cool. It was like, hey, what's up, I'm McKay. And everybody, my family's from Scotland, but it doesn't matter. Everybody just assumed I was Irish, right? So people when we would do bar events, people would always buy me a Guinness. But when I was in my 20s, I hated Guinness. Hated it. Didn't like it at all. Then I leave radio, and then, I don't know, our tastes change over time. I have a Guinness 3-4 years after I leave radio, and I love it. And now I'm like, man, a lot of people handed me free Guinness when I was in radio, and I would just pass them to my friends. Now I'm like, where are all the? I want all the credits on all the Guinness I got back. Guinness is an acquired taste, but if you like it, you'll love it. People are very like territorial about Guinness. They love it. It's like love or hate, right? And I didn't like it at all. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up. You know what? You know what it was, Cameron? I got more refined. I got
classier.
That's what it was.
Even classier.
Classier as all right, what's your superhero origin story? Like, walk me through the traditional, every PT gets this question, and we always say it's like my grandmother got injured and I helped her. Like, I was a high school soccer star and I got injured. But there's other outliers. But I want to know yours. Like, what's your path? Give me the beats, the high notes. Yeah. What do you got to becoming a physical therapist and doing what you do?
So it's not super dramatic, but so I did have some IT band pain. I went to a chiropractor, actually, had some adjustments and things like that. It helped a little, but then I went to track practice because I did track and cross country in high school, and then started doing our warm-ups and things like that. And all of a sudden my hip popped and it felt better. I'm like, what was that? Exercise helped my pain. What is that? And so I started kind of digging in a little bit. And, so that was maybe my sophomore year. And then a little bit later, when you start to kind of think about what you want to do, I was thinking, I'd like to go into healthcare, but I don't want to deal with or blood. Right. So I was thinking, how high can I go, in the healthcare field, to be able to, reach something that I felt was challenging, but not have to deal with those two things. And so I kind of landed on PT, and then I really started thinking about it, and I kind of kicked back a little because I'm like, that's a lot of school. Do I really want to do this? And then I kept just coming back to that. And so that's where I landed, and I love it.
But you went further, right? Because there's a lot of people in the profession. I think someone told me 300 and something thousand PTs in the US, right? That's a lot. But not everybody's a business owner. So you did two things. Like there's a degree in PT. We got to get a degree. And there's a degree in business. So it's like a totally different thing. These are different things. So you said, I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to do this thing this way in terms of I'm going to be a clinician and I'm going to be in charge of a business. And it's very simple to say those things. Look, I just said it. Super simple. It's not necessarily, it's not easy. I love those two words because people go, oh, that's simple. I go, but is it easy?
Anything but.
Anything but, right. So what was the fork in the road that said, I'm going to go this way? And maybe you knew it was going to be hard, or you said it was, it's simple. How hard could it be? And life is like, hold my beer.
Right,
it's going to be difficult, right? But what made you say, okay, not only am I a physical therapist, I want to be a physical therapist business owner. And then how did you decide to do what you do? And I mentioned it a little bit in the intro of you gym-based or located in a gym, which, by the way, I did one of my clinicals. I liked it because I had toys right out the door. Was like, look at all these things that you don't have, that you can just whatever. Yes. Like, giant playground. Perfect. So walk me through that decision, like what pushed you there and then made you take that leap.
Yeah, I think as with anyone, there's a lot of things that kind of lead you in the pathway, in the direction that you end up going. But actually, as a student, I did one of my clinicals just down the road at an outpatient physical therapy clinic, and they actually had the contract for this facility. It's gigantic. I mean, it's 6 tennis courts space. And so it's like there's like half a football field in here and like a eighth of a mile indoor track and like all the exercise equipment you can imagine. They do CrossFit. We have an AlterG. Well, so anyway, they had all of this, right? And so as a PT student, I came in here and I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to work. And so, they actually did not, for whatever reason, stick together and they contract with that physical therapy business. And then this facility is called FAST. It's a sports training facility. And so they were looking for people in the area, and I had started my practice, which I'll go back and talk about that. But I had started my practice, and then one of my PT school friends actually contacted me and contacted the business owner of FAST. And he said, I think I have someone who might be a good fit for you. And I came in here and met with them, and it was, love at first sight. But the reason that I got into private practice is that I came out of school with a lot of student loans, as many of us do. And so the first thing I did was I did a lot of like contract sort of travel. I didn't travel anywhere cool, but I did the contract life where you driving a lot. You're kind of working. I was working in a lot of skilled nursing facilities. So the money's good, but you feel like you're not going anywhere. Right. So I was really searching for something that was going to help me feel fulfilled after going to school for that length of time. Right. I mean, you go to school for all that time and you're like, I'm still not happy. So what's going on here? And so I decided, well, maybe it's because I'm away from home so much. And so I got a job closer to home. It was in a skilled nursing facility. So it paid well, it's secure, but I was left with the feeling that there's no growth. I feel like I'm not really, I'm making an impact within this facility, but where am I to go from here? And I have so much respect for people who are able to work in those settings because there's so many challenges that you just don't have in other settings. But, it was just, I don't think it was for me. It was hard for me to watch some of the clients pass away and things like that, And so I decided I'm going to start my own company. At first, it was just going to be like a running sort of business, maybe treating patients like running athletes on the side.
Because that's your language. That was your thing. You mentioned
track and cross country, and that was my love. And actually, our logo really is still, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a
winged foot, exactly. Mercury's foot, man. Yeah,
and so that's my thing, right? And so I asked the company, I said, can I, have this on the side? It's nothing, it's not competing with, the nursing home at all. You're not seeing a lot of runners in here.
Okay.
And they said, if I started this company that I'll lose my job. And I said, okay, see ya. So I guess I just started it from the ground up at that point. It's been a long road, but that's kind of how I got to that.
I'm on purpose not jumping in because you're telling me a lot when I'm quiet and you keep going. So there's a couple of things that you said. It's like a therapy session, but to me, it's like business and communications, which I love. So number one, you talked about working in a skilled nursing facility and it's neither good nor bad. It's either good for you or not good for a good fit for you,
Right.
good, not
Exactly.
a good fit for you. Like, and I think a lot of people like it wouldn't have been a good fit for me, but nor you. And that's why when people like you or me say,
Yes,
bless those people
truly.
who can do it, because we know it's needed, and we're like, I just can't do it. And the people that can do it are like, I can't understand why you can't do it, and that's
Right.
sort of cool. It shows like we're just two PTs and we're two people, and we have this vast difference, and that is awesome. And if we didn't have that, there'd be a lot of things in this world didn't get done because we'd all just like the same things and not like the same things, and then we'd be like, oh, trouble. You also mentioned something, and I use this. I don't know if it's analogy or metaphor. I'm bad at this, but I use this descriptor with PT students. You went and you did travel PT, and then you worked at a skilled nursing facility, and then you opened your own business. So I put it in there in students' terms when they're like, what's the best thing to do? And I'm like, first of all, the best thing to do is the thing that's right for you. How do you figure that out? I like to frame it this way: hips and shoulders. So what do we know? They're both ball and socket joints, right? So they're the same. Shoulder, very, 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 very mobile, kind of stable, right? It's like what do we always get taught? It's like a golf ball on a golf tee. It's a ball and socket, but it's a golf ball on a golf tee. Envision that. It's not terrible. Now go hip. Dude, that thing is deep. If you've ever observed a hip replacement surgery, like dislocating a hip is like the first person who was like, we're going to do this. Holy crap. That thing is insane.
I'm
like,
always
it's
shocked
insane.
how well people recover from those surgeries, to be honest.
Shocked, right? But the ball and socket joint, it's the same as the shoulder, right? Ball socket, except very, very, there's some mobility to our hips. We have some mobility, right? There's some mobility there, but very, very stable. Like, right? Like, I think probably like an anatomy, my professor, Sky Donovan, is going to correct me. Probably, I think the most stable joint in the body or whatever, just freaking deep. Not a golf ball and a golf tee. Freaking deep, right? So I say there's the parallel to your physical therapy, your healthcare career, which is, okay, which do you value? You want both. I understand that. And you should be able to get both. But you have to have some give and take, right? You staying in a skilled nursing facility is a hip. Nothing wrong. Is that good or bad? You decide if it's good or bad. Some people love, they're just like, I show up, I do my thing, I go home, dude. And the minute I hit that door and hit my car, leave it behind, right? Some people like the shoulder, which is lots of mobility. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there are days when, I mean, you might look around and be like, holy cow, I'm it, man. Like I'm it. And on days when you hit, you're the winner and you're like, brush the dirt off your shoulders. You're like, hell yeah, baby. And there are some days when you miss and you're like, oh God, there's what separates me from nothing, like making no money. Like, oh my God, what if tomorrow no one just decides they like me anymore? So there's pros and cons to these, and you have to decide which feelings, and that's why a lot of times when I talk about communications, I say get to the emotion. You value, I'm going to guess here, you value mobility, and believe me, I'm sure you'd love to have more. We'd all love to have both, but I don't know what joint in the body does exactly both. I bet you Sky Donovan, again, my anatomy professor, is going to be like, well, Jimmy, the joint in the body that provides the equal, whatever. And I would love to know what that is. But that's the cool part about PT is, Cameron, you and I have the same license as the person who works in a skilled nursing facility, as the person who works in a peds clinic, as the person who works in a hospital. And you could just wake up one morning and just be like, going to go over here now. And that's cool. That's really cool. I don't know if there's a lot of professions that can do, healthcare professions anyway, that require a license to do that. Like you can't wake up one morning and just be like, I'm a surgeon. I'm going to do brain surgery. I don't think anyway. I think you need some extra stuff for that. You know what I mean? So I love to hear people who literally said, I woke up one morning and I didn't like this. And I love the fact, and here's the third part that I wanted to hold, is you said it to your employer. There's really no competition. I'm going to go over here and do this with alter G's and runners. And you're over here with people who are, I mean, not to discredit older adults, but they were not coming to see you as what you were describing. And they said, do it and you're fired. And I love the fact that you said, call. Like if the game of poker, you said, call. Okay. And you did it. Good for you. My follow-up question is, what made you feel like you had the right to do that? Knowing that, like what made you feel like oh yeah, call. Okay, let's do this. What gave you that I'm on the end of the diving board? Now someone just said jump and you get fired and you said cannonball, baby. If you work in outpatient PT, you interact with your EMR a lot. You deserve to have an experience that's seamless and integrates all the things you might need to do, like a patient portal, marketing automations, and billing, all in one, all at an unbeatable value. That's what MW Therapy does. Switching over is a breeze. Take a test drive right now and see what you could do with them at mwtherapy.com. Now, where's your PT career license taking you? Get a driver's license. You can drive wherever you want. If you're a physical therapist with a license, you can provide physical therapy wherever you want. That's what Jackson Therapy Partners is there to do. Extraordinary patient care adventures with Jackson Therapy Partners. Perfect for PTs eager to make their mark. Do what you want to do, where you want to do it. See where your skills can take you at jacksontherapy.com. And if you've heard about this thing, we've had it on the show before. It's called remote therapeutic monitoring. And it could boost your clinic's revenue and help more people. Those two things are good. Find out how Physiotech can help you do that. That is Physiotech at their website, physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. Maybe boost your revenues, your clinic's revenue by $290 per patient per quarter now with Physiotech.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I always envisioned doing something special. I really wanted to make an impact. I didn't, not that people who don't have their own practice aren't doing that, but I really wanted to do something special, build something on my own, something I could be proud of, and really show my son, right? So that's one of the things that keeps me going, right? But I want to show him that it's okay to push outside of your comfort zone. You need to do that, right? It's important for growth if you need to do that. I mean, if you're sitting in a position where you're comfortable all the time, there's no growth in that, right?
That's just how it works.
Of course, I was scared. I was nervous. It was a huge risk.
Huge.
And we can talk about how that impacted my life after making that decision. But I felt like I wasn't living my best life, my true purpose, by staying there, or even, working for another physical therapy outpatient clinic, because I had interviewed in several of those places, and it was, they were talking about, this PT student came through and she was able to see 3 patients at once before she was even a PT. And I'm like, I don't want to live like that. And in this area, there was really no alternative, and so I was like, well, okay, well, it's time to start something. It's time to do something.
So before we go too far, you said words like I wanted to build something on my own, and you used the word special. And then I don't have kids, but you brought up the fact that like the ultimate, like, I'm going to do this because it's right. Like, I feel like this is right for me, by the way. This is neither good. What Cameron's doing is neither great or not great. It was right for it was great for Cameron, and it might be right for you, and it also might not be right for you. Like, I want to stress that because I don't want people starting businesses who shouldn't be. And the difference between someone who should and shouldn't is, does it make you want to jump out of bed? Does the idea scare you enough? Does the idea pull you enough, even if it's scary? Because I love the fact that you are not saying, "Oh, dude, no issues. Like, this was not scary at all. Like, what was not a big deal." It should be. Like, otherwise it's not a big push. But you wanted to show who. So who is your son? Who's your son? You're on a podcast, man. Like, kids dig this. They think dad, parents on a podcast.
His name is Parker James.
So you wanted to show Parker James, like, hey, we do hard things. And so walk me through what happened, because you said it affected your life, which is not a little thing. Like, this is your life. Like, you're taking a leap and then hoping the net appears. It does not work the other way. If it goes the other way, it's a pyramid scam. I got a news for you. It's fake. There's a leap and then you're sort of peaking for the net. Like, it really is. And the other option is going to work for someone else where it's predictable and there's the net and that's the hip, right? So what happened when you started this thing?
Well, it was slow to start, as you would expect, but so
should be.
The bill started to pile up a little bit. I was working PRN on the side to start sort of, adding on, but
so you made a bridge balance that.
A lot of time away from home, though, right? So I was married at the time, and we actually ended up separating because, well, a lot of things happen, a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, I think you really have to know your partner and whether how they are with risk, whether they're what their tolerance is to risk, particularly financial risk. So for anyone thinking about starting your own practice, make sure that you really talk to your partner um, and make sure that they're not just saying like, yeah, go for it. Like they actually, them, that that they're going to be like comfortable with that, because that did create some friction and we ended up separating. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
things are great now. We have a really good partnership. We do a great job with my son Parker. He's fantastic. He's happy. We get along great. I'm remarried. We're actually expecting a baby in April, and so thank you.
Congrats.
And she's a little bit more tolerant to the risk, and those are just the things that in my life, that's the way I want to live. Is I want to push. I don't know that I can be just sit and be comfortable and go to the same job every day, do the same exact things every day. And so at the end of the day, having someone in my life that supports that and understands that that's who I am, that's what I needed. And that's ended up, that's a really positive thing now. So,
yeah, I'm going to screw the quote up. And someone will correct me in the comments, but it's something like hard times don't create your character, it reveals it. And this is like, I've heard before you marry someone, go on vacation with them and like, have the vacation go sideways. You know what I mean? Because it's like, take this from me, like we can all sort of fake it for a little while, but like when stuff really gets hard, that's like stuff comes out. And like opening a business, super simple.
Right.
Is it easy? Right. Like and it's not just 9 to 5, man. I mean, all right, well, the rest of the time, there's 168 hours in a week. A business is just 9 to 5, right? It's like, okay, so with a shoulder, you get lots of mobility and a little bit of stability. It's like, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not there fully up to your ears, you're thinking about it. And if you're not thinking about it,
right, you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's you. It's all, and you're wondering, this is like a projection of yourself. A podcast, a YouTube channel, a business is like, I'm putting myself, I mean, it's the logo, Back on Track. This is you. You are putting you're putting everything that's you into this. And then you're hoping that the world goes, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, I like you. And by liking you, they need to, they can't just say, that's great, I'm sure someone needs that. You need the real validation, which is you're showing value. Someone shows up and said, I need this in my life. Thank you for doing this. And that's simple, not easy at all.
Yeah. And as with every business, there's been a lot of changes along the way, because it started in 2017. And we were actually in a different gym. We rented out like a small yoga space. We could use that during the day and see patients in there. That's actually when I started the podcast. Right. I had a
yeah, we gotta get into that.
What'd you say? Yes,
I said, we gotta get into that.
It's a short story, but I also did. We had a support group, a running injury support group on Facebook that was pretty big for a while. And so all of those things, and then the YouTube videos. And actually, Tony Maritato mentioned that, and when I started doing the videos, I looked even younger than I do now. So I'm 34.
We all do. That's how videos
apparently work. But yeah, well, but looking back though, he's right. I did look about 10 years younger than I felt, but
yeah.
But anyway, we were getting people from all over the place, because of that. So it's incredible the reach that you can have. I'm sure you've experienced that, probably all sorts of countries.
It's the way to, and I love when people like give, hey, like your show's been heard all over and you download numbers. I'm like, yep. Mm-hmm. I'm like, the coolest part is when someone tells me that they learned something, or you validated what they already knew, or you put, like when someone says, I put word, you or your guest. Here's the cool part is I get cred for when someone's smart, like you says something, they're like, oh, thanks for you, Jimmy, for interviewing. Like, I just arranged a time to talk to a smart person. And I was standing there and I asked a question. But all right, so let's go into this, because I bet you there's some emotion into why'd you start a podcast? Why'd you start making videos? Because a lot of people will say, well, I'm a PT and a business owner and a communicator or a marketer. Those are 3 different jobs, right? And they are. I mean, I've got a degree in one of them, and I do. I have a degree in 2 of them. Sorry, I have a degree in PT too. I almost forgot about that one. But why'd you start doing it? It doesn't have to be a fancy answer. Like, in fact, the most basic answer is usually it. Like, why'd you start making stuff? Did you start podcasting and video at the same time, or what was the order, and why'd you do it?
Yeah, I mean, that was I kind of did them at the same time. But
good.
I guess I saw that there was a lot of misinformation or things that I perceived as misinformation out there towards athletes.
Okay, good,
And I wanted
good.
to reach a wider audience. Um, and actually,
So hold on,
yes.
wait,
Mhm.
those are two different things though, because I want to stop. You saw misinformation and said, "I'm going to counter the misinformation with good
Yes.
information."
Hmm.
Is that right? Because I commiserate with people who see bad information and then that's bullshit. Like they'll tweet, that's bullshit. I get it, but that doesn't do anything. That's like yelling at the fire. And
Right.
my thing is make good information. I'm sorry that this is the way the world works and that good, misinformation will spread and it'll hurt people. And it can and it does. But yelling at it doesn't make it better. It doesn't. It doesn't. Making better good stuff is the only way to balance the world if you look at the world on scales. And we need less people yelling because that doesn't move the scale. We need more people creating. I don't care how you create words, pictures, sounds, images, whatever. Create that way. So you said, I hate this and I'm going to do something about it. And you did. What'd you learn from doing it?
Well, I learned that I actually really love it.
Good. Yeah. Okay, cool.
um,
That's a big
I've
deal.
also
That's a
learned,
big deal.
I think you're starting to see this more and more all the time. It's just that there's so much noise out there on every
Yeah.
platform. I mean, there's more platforms now than there ever have been, more users, more streamers, and so you have to really be strategic,
So
I
hold
think.
on a second.
Yes.
So hold on a second. So what you're talking about, and the reason I know the fancy term is I'm putting together a presentation for CSM, which is not long from now. And one of the reasons I'm putting out, or one of the concepts is the signal to noise ratio, which is not hard to visualize. Listen, today is the noisiest day in history online. How can that be, Jimmy? Because it's easier and easier to create and share. So people do. And you're trying to get signal, which is your good message, whatever you decide is good, right? You decide trying to get that through the noise to the people that it could benefit the most.
Absolutely.
Right? So that is the thing that you're trying to do. And it is a valiant thing to do. It is a very, 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 very valiant thing to do, which is like, I'm going to rage against the machine. Here's the thing. It's a decentralization because there's still generally the same amount of users as there was 20 years ago, except it used to be like, I mean, when I was a kid, because I'm a little older than you, when I was a kid, there was like 5 TV channels, like 2, 4, 7, PBS, whatever. That was it. But there were the same viewers, but it was less people controlling the thing. And now it's decentralized. But now you're right, is the signal versus no. You could have a crappy product and spend budget on the one of the 5 TV stations, and you will control the market. You will beat the other people simply because if I don't know about it, it doesn't exist. So you said, I liked creating content. What did you like about it?
That's a great question. I think I like being able to
Thanks.
explore ideas with guests,
Good.
kind of like what we're doing right now. I actually found that I
Yes.
was learning a lot as a PT.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's a cheat code, man.
So because not only was I learning from guests, because I would have people on that were a lot smarter than I was. Um,
Smartest way to do it. Yeah. That's my cheat code. I
but
do it in
if I would
public. Yeah.
do a video or if I was going to do a podcast episode solo and just talk about a topic, I would have to, refresh myself. I have to really have to
Think. Like it
organize
makes
it,
you
organize
think.
my thoughts. And then
So people, so before, I don't know if it was before we hit record or not, you mentioned podcasting and you're like, well, I did it. It wasn't like, I forget the word you used, but like, you don't do it anymore. Why?
well, because I had to kind of decide. I was split with time. I kind of had to
Yeah,
decide
it's difficult.
between
Right. It's valuable.
this business and that business. And I know some try to combine the two, and maybe that's doable. But at the time, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so this just felt like I needed to put money in the bank account, and
Yeah.
it was like, well, seeing patients is doing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
a lot faster than doing this type of thing for me at the time.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if your first thing is to do, it is like, how do I monetize it? I'm like, you're asking the wrong questions, but you learned a ton by doing it. Right. And also I tell people all the time, well, some of your favorite shows in history of TV or streaming or whatever, they had an arc. They came around, they did a thing, they shared their message over 155 episodes. And then they were like, great, moving on. And those people, those actresses, and staff people, writers, and they moved on to other things. It doesn't mean that was a bad waste of time because you didn't generate revenue from it. First of all, you learned, and I know this sounds like I'm the more you know, like BSA, like learning super freaking valuable. It is. I mean, not just like networking. That's and I hate that word because it sounds cheap. I tell people build is public relation. Like you're building relationships with people. Asymmetric relationships, and asymmetric is like if you've listened to this podcast and you feel like you know who I am, you kind of do because I'm as real as I can be with a microphone in front of me. If we hung out, it'd be a little different, but like unfortunately for some people, not much. This is pretty much what we get. But you changed because the podcast was a Trojan horse that allowed you permission to ask people questions, and that is a life skill. Smart people
there was even
love
more.
to.
There was one thing I haven't mentioned that was actually one of the bigger things.
Right.
It was
what was it?
My confidence. I built my confidence, by when I did my PT interviews, so I did like an early round and I literally could not put two sentences together because I was so nervous and talking in front of like 5 or 10 people that I just stuttered my way through the whole thing. And by doing the podcasting and by doing the videos, I became more confident and able to actually string sentences together on the fly as opposed to needing to like read off of something or whatever. And so my evaluations got smoother. My ability to relate to patients got better because I could communicate better. I can speak in front of my team now because, we have 7 employees now.
Wow. Good for you. Holy shit.
All within the last
small,
year,
man.
actually. So that's a whole story in itself, but all within the last year, 7 new employees. But now I'm leading these meetings and annual planning meetings and like weekly meetings and all of these things. And I feel comfortable with it. And I really do relate it all back to when I did my podcast and the videos and the live Facebook streams and all of that. And you just need to like relax, know that you know what you're talking about and express it.
Relaxing isn't easy though. It's simple. Hey man, just relax. Right. Like people tell you all the time, like the worst advice to give to someone in a stressful situation is, hey man, relax. It's like, yeah, right. I've been trying that. Like my body is, I cannot convince my body to do that. I would like that. So I heard advice and I forget where I heard it from, which is, I never practiced judo, but the idea of judo is it's kind of like in Brazil. I've done Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's like similar, which is like when you see someone who knows how to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, well, they give like almost the minimal amount of effort. They use your energy
right
against you, right? In that situation. Like me of the world, I'm sweaty and I'm hyperventilating. And I'm fighting hard. And someone who knows Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they're thinking, I'm making this percentage up 90% and they're doing 10%. And they know which 10% to do. And it's like mental judo. And talking to people is a skill. You can have a talent for it, which is like I was born with 42 and someone else was born with 76. But if I outwork you, I make my skill more. So what you're born with is talent, what you can practice, and communication is a skill. And it's simple. Just talk to someone. Relax, man. But it's not easy. Simple. I feel like the title of this episode is going to be simple, but not easy.
Recurring theme.
Yeah. So I love to hear that you maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, this was a thing that you knew like was not talent. And you said, but I want it to be a skill and I'm willing to put myself in uncomfortable situations. If someone doesn't like speaking, hosting a podcast is the worst place to go. And then the quote that comes to mind, I think it was recent, Mike Tomlin, who's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, said, I don't care what you're capable of. Exactly. I care what you're willing to do. Like, and I was like, wow. And I hate this because I'm a Giants fan and like the Steelers and stuff. But Mike Tomlin's great. It's hard to hate Mike Tomlin. But I think that's a great quote, which is like, as a football coach, but like a metaphor for life is like having a great capability is nice. But if you're not willing to do anything to make it better, what the hell am I going to do with that? So the fact that you were like, this isn't a strong suit of mine, or is this something that's uncomfortable, and I'm willing to voluntarily do this and spend time doing it is a big nod. I mean, success does not happen by accident. And I'm not saying, hey, doing a podcast has now caused you to rocket ship to 7 people in a year, but that's got to be a part of it, which is like, I'm willing to do hard things. And this is hard for me. It's easy for other people, but not for me. Doing hard things is a cheat code. And I don't care if it's like learning how to fix your car, but you're a physical therapist. It's like, I'm willing to put myself in uncomfortable situations and look what happens. I came out 1% better, 50% better. I came out better.
And I think you have to know the type of person that you want to become. and I
Oh
knew
yeah.
the types of skills that I would need to have in order to run a business. Now, some of the other skills would come later, but that was one that I identified early on as being an issue, and I had known that for years, right? And I was always willing to put in the work, but I didn't always have all of those skills,
Right.
and so communication was definitely a bigger one. But actually, we just
Yeah.
held it was like a 4 hour. We had breaks, but 4 hour annual planning meeting. It was kind of like a party, kind of like a meeting, but we ran that. I ran that whole
Oh, yeah.
thing, no problems, and so. Um, I recommend anybody who's dealing with those types of issues start putting some videos out, start talking to people, make a podcast. It doesn't, get the experience.
Do a podcast and never do a podcast. Oh, I struggle with this because so when I used to train radio DJs or people who wanted to be radio DJs, we would put them in a production studio. It's not going on the air, but they would be able to access my playlist or what happened from 3 days ago, and they'd be able to do mock radio shows. And that was good practice. It was good practice. The place that I saw most growth was when I was like, you're coming in on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and you're live on the air. So it was like in the production studio, it was awkward and they fumbled, but that was okay. It was a safe space, right? Because nothing's going on. We ain't sharing that. Suck here. But to actually see the growth, it was like they had to know it was real. Like to them, it had to be, there had to be consequences. Sure. And that's, and to me as a program director, I didn't want my radio station to suck at all, ever. I wanted the best, right? But I also had to know, like, I'm taking people from tattoo artists and bartenders, and I'm creating radio DJs. There had to be the option of failure, and that also goes back to like storytelling in movies. If the whole time you knew Rocky was going to win, would you go on the emotional roller coaster? Yeah. You wouldn't. There needs to be the chance of failure, and you need to see what that's like. If Rocky loses, he goes back to his small little apartment, and he shoulda, coulda, woulda.
I like that. So you think that the live element is really important for that, and I actually would agree.
Yeah, like if like, so what I'm saying is, if Cameron had said, I'm going to practice my communication skills by recording podcasts, but I'm never going to release them, it would have changed something in you. And you would have just been like, well, I can just sort of fudge through this. But the fact that this is going to see the light of day made you say there's a little adrenaline and going, oh, this is real. Like this ain't going to be perfect. Newsflash, it never is. Like, I mean, not even perfect, but like it can go completely sideways and still be great. Like it really can. Like and that's why I tell people, like, what's your goal with your podcast? When people ask me that, I go, have fun, learn stuff. Have fun and learn something.
Sure.
And I go, so if I had a little bit of fun and I learned one thing, this was and we're 38 minutes into this episode. I've already learned a bunch of things, but I set the bar not low. I set it appropriately, which is like, I need to learn one thing. And learning one thing is simple. Right. It's not easy though, because there's a lot of things to learn. And I've already learned a lot of things, which makes it harder to learn new things because there's fewer and fewer things to learn. There's really not. There's actually so many things to learn, right? It's like done. But the fact, like, I think if you had just recorded podcast episodes and knowing that you were never going to release them, it wouldn't have done the thing. There had to be some real, not fear, but like understanding this is going to see the light of day, man. Like people are going to judge me, and it's my logo's attached. I'm invested in this. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to be a podcaster, but I want you to be a communicator, because that's person to person. I don't care if it's with a microphone or a camera or eyeballs and mouth and ears. Same stuff, different way.
Here's the thing. You never know who you're influencing when you put stuff out like this.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you never do.
I mean, I've had patients come in saying that they heard something that we did long time ago, and it's just, they remembered that. And it's just, and actually I wanted to bring this up at some point. And I know you probably, I don't know how you feel about compliments, but when I was coming out of PT school, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was a long time ago. It was before I started my business. I heard your podcast, and that's why I said you never know who you're influencing, right? And I heard some of the guests on there, and they had their own practice, and they seemed really confident, and they knew what they were talking about when they were working with these athletes, and it seemed like it was just, I wanted to be like that. I wanted to. I don't know, just exhibit elements of what those guests and what you were portraying, because it sort of made me want to push myself to do big things like this, right? And so, I do want to say thank you for doing what you're doing with this podcast, because it really is influencing people you might not even realize, or out there doing big things. They might not ever tell you or talk to you about it, but it's happening. So
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because when you start something like this, as you know, like you do it for, all right, I'm going to figure things out, and I want to have these conversations, and I'm going to share. I'm going to put myself out into the ether. I'm going to see what happens, and we pretend like, well, if nobody listens, that's okay because I still learned. But you want
Right.
one person to listen, and once one listens, you're like, well, how about two, and why not four? The biggest compliment I get, or someone can give me is two. One is a little bit more than the other. One is I never thought about that, which means you brought them an idea in the world of the internet where ideas are a click away or just a type search, right? So I never thought about that. And the second one, the deeper, if something could be on my tombstone, would be I've never thought about that way, which means they have thought about that topic or they've been exposed to it, but you've made them look at it from a different angle. And again, cheat code is I get that credit just by bringing smart people on the show, and I sit next to them or I talk with them and pull that out of them. So I do think me doing that is me, but it's 1% me or 2% me, and 98% the fact that I asked it's the guest, right? But it's also the patient. Like, I know it's a podcast, but if you can be 1% of the reason someone changes, that's a lot of percent, because they have to do most of the work. The physical part of physical therapy ain't on us. And I'm not saying don't touch people. I'm not saying don't do, right. That's not what I'm saying. They got to decide that the juice is worth the squeeze. Showing up, doing the things that you say, like, it's not small, and you can see how far things. So thank you for saying that. This is the second time in 1,200 plus episodes that I've had a moment like this, and the other was Stephen Burkhart. Did you ever listen to that episode? That was one. So I'm on Instagram, and I love finding other physical therapists who are creating content now, and there's more and more every day, and they whoop my ass on Instagram. I'm not great on Instagram because I'm not really I'm an audio guy, right? Where does audio live? Podcasting, right? And I came across Snow Beast Performance, and it was just some dude who looked like he was in Vermont, and he was just doing ski and snowboard stuff. And I remember just being like, I've never done a ski or snowboard episode. That's kind of cool. I'm a crappy skier. And I just DM him, and I go, hey, man, love what you're doing. It looks like you're just educating people on how to ski and snowboard, and you're a business owner. Would love to interview. He comes on the show, and I give people like a pre-interview form, and that just helps us talk, like me find out about things and buttons to push and things to bring up. And he just talks about regular stuff. And we get in the episode, and Steven's talking about how, like, and I asked him a similar question, like, what gave you the right? And I think Steven moved from like New Jersey to Vermont, and he just opened a practice. I'm like, you didn't know anybody in Vermont? He's like, I drove up to a gym and was like similar to you, like, hey, what's up, Steve? You're here to like help skiers and snowboard. I'm a PT. Oh, what is that? That's a this. And I said, what gave you the right? Like, and I asked that question because no one has to give you the right. That's why I asked that question. It's a totally like loaded question, loaded in a good way. And he was like, and he said something similar, which is one of the greatest compliments ever, similar to the one you just gave me, which is like, I heard too many people on your podcast who sounded like they were me and then became something that I wanted to become. And I just said, no one's going to give you permission, man. No one also needs to give you permission. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. It's simple. Just, hey, man, just go to Vermont. If you want to be around skiers and snowboarders, you're in Northeast. Vermont's the place to be. He didn't need permission. The only person he needed permission from was Steven. That's it. But that's not easy. That's not easy because there's weight to this decision, because this is not 9 to 5. This is 168 hours a week. This is yourself in that Back on Track logo. That's you. When you see that, you see you more than the world sees you. They see a logo. You're like, but that's all of it. And that's not small. Starting a business is not. If there's no emotion in you in starting that business, I don't think it's going to succeed. And if you put it in, barriers, chance.
If you don't have it in you, you're just not going to do it. You're not going to want to do it because you don't work 40 hours. At the beginning, and even heck, I mean, I worked 12 hours this weekend. And I'm 6 years into it.
Did you like it though? Like, is it?
Yes, I do.
And hold on, I'm going to ask the question again. Don't just say it because You're here, and
Yes.
you know this is going somewhere. Do you still like it though? And that doesn't mean that there isn't difficulty, because I loved radio. Like I did love it, and I would bitch to friends about, I got to go on the station on the weekend. I sort of liked it. Doesn't mean that sometimes I wish there was a partner that would take a little bit of the weight off. You going in there for 12 hours on the weekend, it's still you.
Yeah, and
doesn't mean it's easy though. You can say that's the thing I want people to understand. You can be, and I believe you, you're honestly saying it is worth it. Doesn't mean it's not work. Because like that whole and I used to be the one to say, find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Find a job that you love, and you are starting to work. Because
it's not easy. It's an extreme challenge. And there are times that I don't want to, that I didn't want to do it, that I'm looking for any way to get out of it, but the rewards for doing it outweigh that. And for me,
shoulders. You had and there's failure. There are no rewards without the risk or the tension of failure, right? Watching the movie Rudy, he could have not made it. Love Rudy. Or the coach that switched his senior year could have been like, well, I don't know who this guy is. Screw that. There needs to be, for it to be a good story anyway, there needs to be a risk of failure. But that's because that exists in life. You cannot leap and know the net is there. That's a pyramid scam, which, by the way, there's no net. There's no success. Do not be involved in a pyramid scam.
So speaking of stability and mobility, the good news is it's not always so unstable, So we've grown to the point where I have an office manager and a clinic director, and I've got 2 PTs and a PTA, and hiring a third PT. So I'm able to have more stability because they're able to do a lot of the things that I was doing that I don't necessarily like to do, that take some unnecessary energy from me.
Right.
And, we've been going along long enough that the system's in place. They're solid. We've made adjustments and we continue to, but it's stable. It's more stable. No business is 100% stable, but, it's definitely moving in the direction that it's more stability. And so I can sleep better at night, right? Because at first you don't get a lot of sleep at night.
You can, and maybe I'll amend my example when I talk to students, which is like, to start a business, it starts off, it's a shoulder, man. I mean, when you start, it's day one, it's like, and there's no one at the front door. It's just me. Here we are. Okay. But you can grow that. And I'm going to venture a guess. I'm going to throw 3 P's and 3 T's at you. And you tell me if I'm right or wrong. You had people, product, process, and you grew those things. In the beginning, you have no process. And you also have no people besides you, but you have you, and you're enough in the beginning. And then you decide, the people and the process decide the product, right? And as you grow, you add people, you change the process, you grow the product. And then you needed to also have tools, training, and time. You added different things, tools, and then you understand how to use them. And through utilizing the tools and the training, you have to make sure there's time. You decided that doing the podcast was good, but I only have a finite amount of Cameron time. So I'm going to decide to do this and not that. That is not a bad or good decision. That is right for Cameron and not right for someone else. So it's the 3 T's and the 3 P's.
I like that.
People, product, process, tools, trading, time. I like it because I can remember them.
It's easy to remember. Right.
Like Stooges, like 3 Stooges, and 2 Blind Mice, and 3 Amigos. All right, last thing we do on the episode is the parting shot. I feel like we talked about a lot, man. You know what I mean? Like it was like emotion. Like there's real stuff in here. And I love when people can hear it, because it's not just the victory lap on social media of like, look at Cameron in year 7. It's like, I know, but if you want to get to 7, you got to understand what day 0 looks like. Right. And that's what I like. So if you, in your parting shot, here it is.
This is the parting shot.
What would your advice be for your parting shot to Cameron on day -1? It's good. You're going to open tomorrow. What would you have said to yourself?
Learn what metrics are important. I mean, that's a big one, right?
Good.
Learn your metrics, track your metrics, and because otherwise you're going in blind and you're trying to manage a business emotionally. And I did that for 6 years. I mean, really until this year, I did that. I managed it emotionally, and that's good, not the way to do it. And so I made mistakes. People make mistakes. But that's what I would say is learn the metrics, and just keep pushing for, if this is really what you want to do, then I would keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Marcus Lemonis. Have you ever watched The Profit on MSNBC? Marcus Lemonis. He's like a one-man Shark Tank. Like he's like an entrepreneur, and he said the very first question he asks is, "I need to see your numbers." And if you don't know them, he's like,
Yep.
"I'm out." It just shows that you're not paying attention or spending time on the things that matter. Not knowing them is not acceptable to Marcus. And I love the fact that you just sort of reiterate that, which is like, that's a business thing that shows that you understand. That's your pulse, like the business pulse. There's KPI, pulse, heart rate, like all those things. Find it, but also there's a million things you can measure. Measure the important things that are going to give you ROI.
And part of that is learning, knowing, networking, right? And meeting people who work well with you, that you work well with, that, you know, for me, that was, I hope it's okay to shout somebody out. Robbie Welkers. Him and Joey, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. Albatron. They do the rehab CEOs. Well, it's been great. So to be able to go from 0 to, or like just myself, to 7 people in 1 year, I learned the system.
Small, man. 7 lives. When you say 7 people, it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. When you say 7 lives, you're like, oh shit.
Families, right?
7 lives come right, because 7 people is 7 people, but 7 lives is those people who are in their solar system, wives, husbands, kids, other, like it's not a small thing. It's not. Cameron, appreciate you doing this, man. Like doing it and being willing to share, because I think the only way we learn real stuff is by real people who've done the thing and who maybe thought at one, I'm not ready for this, and you did it anyway.
I appreciate
so thank you for doing
Jimmy.
It. Awesome. All right, well, let's say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Thanks for coming to ours.